Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking particularly about the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's visit to China. It also marks the 71st anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Pakistan and China, and of course our long-standing relationship with them. What are some of the inroads that we hope to make, particularly with regard to this visit of the Foreign Minister to China, the significance of it, after the change in government, also the China in new era and its own ramifications, our relationship with China regarding as far as the second phase of CPEC is concerned, the challenges we face there, as far as how do we define our relationship in the light of changing China itself. All of those things today on Perspective. I have with me today Shakil Ahmed Rame, who's a senior economist. Thank you for joining us today. We also have with us Zoon Ahmed Khan joining us from China, and she's a journalist. Thank you so much for being with us, Zoon. We also have with us Naila Chauhan, who is a former ambassador. Thank you so much for being with us. And Dr. Talat Shabir, who's director CPEC at ISSI. Thank you so much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Shakil sir, to start off with you, as far as overall, like we were earlier talking about, what do you see in terms of the changes as far as this particular visit of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's to China is concerned?
Thank you. I think we have to realize, see what is going on around the world and at what stage we are in CPEC, and then we must refine or devise a policy framework for the interaction and the implementation. Unfortunately, what is happening right now, we are not very cognizant of the fact what is happening around the world. So first of all, we need to understand China is transforming right now. China is transforming from a conservative, passive and low-key country towards assertive, proactive and high-profile country. Okay. No, that means we have to think, so what is China after 1998? Because that process started from the Go Global policy in 1998 by China. So we have to refine our strategies and engagement in this context. Okay. One thing, and second thing, when China is becoming a global power, they have their own responsibilities. Okay. They need, as they criticize the USA and the European unions for their biasness towards certain countries, so they don't want to look like, so be biased toward other countries. Okay. So we need to analyze and then devise our new policy of engagement. Right. One thing, second thing.
Let me come back to you, Shakil Saab. I'm going to go to Zoon. Zoon, I hope you've been hearing Shakil Ahmed Rame Saab, and he's been saying, he says that as far as our engagement with China is concerned, it has to be seen in the light of a changing China. How would you respond to that, considering of course that you are there, and in terms of the new era, China in the new era, that slogan itself, do you feel that there is a change there, and therefore our methods of engagement with China also have to change accordingly?
Firstly, MAHRUKH, thank you for having me. And yes, I completely do agree with Mr. Rame when he says that it's a China that is increasingly, I would use the word not assertive, but proactive. And when we look at, obviously, back in 2013, it was the Belt and Road Initiative. And now recently, it's the Global Development Initiative and the Global Security Initiative. It's also the fact that, in the recent escalation of events, we all know that in the world, we have a heated conflict happening right now, which is serving to divide countries, which is aiming to force countries to choose sides. And it is here, I think, where what Mr. Rame says is absolutely very relevant. I'd like to go back to that period in history when there was a concept of the Bandung spirit. And actually, China right now is that country which has such increasing stakes in the global economy. China is a massively growing country in every sense of the word. And China is a country that is constantly appealing to others to stop choosing sides and think about inclusive cooperation, not think about, for example, I'll also mention here that one of the statements that came very frequently in the Chinese media today was how China is talking about that how the Indo-Pacific is a negative mindset. And what we need is something like Asia Pacific. What we need are multilateral mechanisms that are uniting countries. And in that sense, I think to some extent, Pakistan is well aware of what's happening in the world. We have also, like most countries in the world, we are being affected by this polarization. And it's not just this conflict, it's also the fact that Afghanistan, our neighboring country, is still in a stage of relative uncertainty. And in all of these aspects, actually, China and Pakistan have an understanding. They have been proactively trying to build consensus on issues that affect both of us. And in the statement also, we see that the priority for both of our countries is obviously that we maintain our position as we have for 71 years, to be united in the spirit of inclusiveness.
Let me come back to you. Let me go to Dr. Talat Shabir. Dr. Talat, again, as far as our engagement with China is concerned, and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's visit to China, particularly now, and Zoon also mentioned some challenges in the recent past that we've seen. How would you reflect on that? How do you think things are likely to change as far as our relationship with China is concerned? Of course, there has been some consistency in terms of our diplomatic ties with China, but then we've also seen some confusion now and again. Would you agree with that?
Thank you very much for having me on your show. First of all, I think the communique which was issued after the meeting of Chinese foreign minister and our foreign minister is very detailed. And I think they have discussed all issues that confront Pakistan and China at the moment. May they be regional issues, maybe the international issues, may they be the issues that Pakistan is facing at the moment in our own country. Now, when we talk of China-Pakistan relations, then it's consistency. So it has been consistent, but as Shakir Rame has mentioned, the world has changed. World is changing very fast, and there's a transformation. You see, in 2013, they had concept of Belt and Road Initiative, and they now thought, after nearly seven years later, that they they need to initiate maybe global development initiative or global security initiative. No, they are constantly changing their concept or framework of the global issues or regional issues. They are changing their framework that are meant to address issues that confront China. Now, it is very, when you look at the communique, it's very rosy. And it seems that China-Pakistan relations, are going very good. Of course, China and Pakistan relations are very consistent, and they are relations of cooperative, strategic, cooperative framework. But I think there's a lot to do on part of Pakistan as well as on part of China to help us get out of this situation. There are challenges, when we talk of international issues, there are challenges. When we talk of economy, there are challenges. When we talk of regional issues, particularly in Afghanistan, China and Pakistan, though they have convergence of opinion on Afghanistan and on many other regional issues, but I think there's a lot more to do on part of Pakistan and China, and
let me come back to you on that note.
The situation is still not very.
I will let's talk more about this. Let me go to Naila Chauhan. Naila, in terms of the challenges that we have, that's what we're talking about as far as China and Pakistan, the relationship, diplomatic ties. Of course, there's a lot of history there, and all-weather friend, all of those terms, of course, we use for our relationship with China. But in terms of challenges, are we working towards addressing the issues that are, that we've seen arise in the recent past with our relationship with China, with CPEC, all of those things?
Yes, the challenges are enormous, because you might recall the attack on the Chinese in Pakistan recently, which was very unfortunate, and the government immediately, condemned those acts and gave assurances to the Chinese side that we are committed to further promoting our relations with China, walking the talk, implementation of our part of the CPEC. So yes, we are trying to address, but we must also see this whole development in the regional context. Of course, the foreign minister's visit is in the context of the 71st anniversary of our establishment of diplomatic relations, which is very important. It's a milestone. Nevertheless, you might recall that on the 24th of May, a Quad meeting is also taking place. And that would be Japan, USA, India, and Australia, where the new Australian newly elected Prime Minister Albanese would also be there. So the groupings in the region are also a big challenge. It's good that the foreign minister visited USA also and gave assurances that Pakistan intends to further strengthen its relations with USA with mutual respect and respect for all sovereignty. Simultaneously, then he visited China. So this is an important combination of visits, which is trying to give the right message to the world that Pakistan is a peace-loving country. We are not taking any sides, but we value our friendship, especially with China, and we are trying to address the misgivings that had taken place in the recent times due to unfortunate domestic incidents.
Right, let me come back to you. Shakil Saab, as far as, I think when Naila is talking about the timing of the visit after the US visit, I think that's really important, and I think we're setting the right tone by telling the world that, like she said, we're not picking sides. Do you think that's going to have its own impact with our relationship, vis-a-vis our relationship with China?
I think our relationship is immune to such shocks because we have a very durable relationship. But it is important message for the world. So we are not moving from our stated policy. So where we are. So we want a relation, if we are a relation with the USA, but we are firmly committed with our brotherhood with the China. So that is the message. But the real thing to do for the Pakistan right now to strengthen the relationship, first, Pakistan need to start analyzing our relationship with the lens of economy. Right now what we are doing, we are only analyzing our relationship through the lens of the security and the diplomacy. That is excellent. Our security and diplomacy. But economy lens is missing right now.
But Shakil Saab, don't you think that economy has been on the mind and is now on the mind of this government particularly?
Every government they have on their mind. But for that you need the practical actions, that we have the practical actions in the security and diplomacy. CPEC is a practical action. But what is happening right now? The CPEC second phase, we are not understanding what does mean second phase. Second phase is entirely different from the first phase of CPEC. In the first phase we have G2G relationship projects are G2B projects. So there was not involved much of the private sector. And the second phase is all about the private sector, agriculture, cooperation, and again the private sector. So for that purpose the dynamics are new. Because why I am saying this, look at that. So for the first phase the company did not have to interact with so many provinces or so many agencies. But for the private, if you want to establish an industry, you have to register. And for registration there are 7 companies you deal in Pakistan. On that you have 35 different types of the DEX agencies in Pakistan. And every province's policy, they have their own investment policies. Government of Pakistan, they have the Federal Board of Investment, provincial have their own setup. So we need to consolidate these all things at one place. And that is the CPEC authority. But unfortunately this government is not understanding. They are saying, oh, we did the first phase, we will do the second. But the first and second, they are entirely different. One thing and second thing, if you allow me, in second phase the security framework, we need to refine it, because during the first phase we have the we have the arrangements of manning the security, providing the people who are moving on. But in the second phase the scope is wide, number of industries will come, private sector will come, in every factory where the thousands of people will work. So will you man the each and every person? No, you need a new security framework by keeping in mind the 5th generation warfare. then we can move on.
Right, let me go to Zoon. Zoon, would you agree? You think that we need a new security framework, which is what Shakil Rame Saab is saying. He's saying that, of course, we have to understand that as far as the second phase is concerned, it's vastly different from the first phase. And for that to conclude successfully, we need different kind of arrangements, completely different from what happened as far as the first phase is concerned. Of course, barring the challenges in that quarter that we discussed earlier on. Could you answer that? How do you see that overall, the situation?
There are a number of things that I might like to mention here. Of course, we have been talking about phase 2 since 2017, 18. And actually, the very purpose of building the infrastructure is always to meet those prerequisites that were obviously Pakistan's requirement or that are any other country's requirement, to be able to create better opportunities for our own people. So we always knew that G2G is going to be about infrastructure development, and G2G is still today too continues to be very important when it comes to FTAs, when it comes to enabling or even envisioning better scopes and avenues for cooperation. So I think the government still has great relevance in serving, especially as that platform to engage businesses on both sides, scholars on both sides, think tanks on both sides, people on both sides, per se. And in the end, he's absolutely correct when he says that now it's going to be about businesses understanding each other, connecting with each other, and seeing opportunities, Chinese in Pakistan and Pakistanis in China. And I think that's absolutely where, of course, we are still going through a global pandemic. Let's not forget that that's still not over. Overall, the global economy has taken a hit. So despite all of these factors, we need to creatively think about what can we do. And here I would say that actually Pakistan and China under the CPEC framework have come a very long way. And this is a cooperation that is constantly involved and constantly reflected. So for instance, even though in 2020 and 21, those kind of interpersonal interactions could not take place, we were still doing many webinars, many events, a lot of demonstration projects in agriculture took place. There was a lot of planning for phase 2, which we require in any case. The second thing is that this is going to be a long-term process. We will not say that, okay, phase 1 started in 2015 and it's going to end at this period and then phase 2 starts. If you look at China's own development, it's over a span of 40 years and there's still parts of China. There will always be parts of even the most developed country that need to improve further. So we need to think about CPEC as a long-term process. We need to think about how is it that we in Pakistan can also learn from other countries that have successful B2B cooperation with China. How can we promote our products in China in a more creative way? How can we increase Pakistan's presence, cultural presence in Chinese media, etc.?
I'll just come back to you. Naila. Overall, in terms of our people-to-people interaction is concerned, what Zoon was talking about, she's saying in terms of our products, how to explore the market in China in a better way, all of those things. Do you think those also, as far as economy is concerned, of course, it's one of those major areas the government is working on, and exploring our economic ties with China also seems to be very much on the agenda?
Yes, I agree with Zoon, and I also agree that although the first phase is coming to its conclusion, that doesn't mean it has ended. Okay. And there would be an overlapping between the first phase and the second phase. So while the umbrella of the G2G will continue until all the infrastructure is developed, which has yet not been done due to pandemic and so many other factors, the B2B will grow under the wings and then start growing on its own. For which our private sector has to be more innovative on how to market our products to the taste of the Chinese consumers. Okay. And for that, of course, more innovation is required, more proactive approach for private sector is required. Because until now, historically, our private sector has been more focused on EU and US. China is a new dimension as far as trade relations are concerned. We have been importing more than exporting to them. But I think now, given the challenges to our economy, our private sector has to become more innovative in actually working to the taste of the Chinese consumers as well. And then this overlapping between the first phase of CPEC and the second phase of CPEC will help our private sector to strengthen its relations with the Chinese businessmen. But I agree with Mr. Rame also that the security paradigm has also been worked on, because without that sense of security that the Chinese investors need to come into Pakistan, this can't go forward. So there has to be multi-pronged approach to further strengthen the relations, and this visit of the foreign minister gives a good boost to the basis, but we have to start working on the
Start building on that.
foundations and the
Dr. Talat,
lacunas
would
that
you
exist
let me
in
I'll just
promotion
come
of
back to you.
relations.
Dr. Talat, as far as you heard what Naila was saying and Zoon before that, and also of course Shakil Rame Saab, as far as security arrangements are concerned, of course those are important, but in terms of tailoring our products to the needs of the Chinese market, do you think we're working towards that? Are we focusing on that, considering of course the challenges to our economy at this time, which are paramount and which the government is focused on, and of course exploring the Chinese market? Do you think that there has been effective work
I think
on
the security challenge will continue to exist for maybe until CPEC is completed, because there are forces those who are trying to undermine this mega project, and we should be alert to on that front. I would just like to mention about exploring Chinese market, having B2B relationship with China, addressing problems with regards to consumer market in China. I think we talk a lot about B2B, but there's no mechanism, at least for the last 3 years that I was actively engaged with Chinese businessmen. We need to formulate, we need to create a framework of B2B connectivity as a B2B businesses. How will the businesses will connect with the Chinese businesses? So there's a lot of gap. So we talk a lot about it. Secondly, when we talk of development model, there's a lot of difference between Chinese development model and Pakistan's development model. Okay. Pakistan's development model has not been able to commensurate with what Chinese do. There's a lot of gap, how what thought process goes on when Chinese do business and our development work, or when we do. I think there's a gap that needs to be addressed.
Why haven't we been able to get our businessmen to work on that kind of model? Because of course, exploring a market like China is certainly something that should be very, very much on the agenda. And we saw the Prime Minister interact with private businessmen even in Karachi, and overall to try to engage the business community. Do you think it's something that will be worked on perhaps in the very near future? It's on the agenda?
I would like to, MAHRUKH, mention one last thing which Ramesh Saab has also mentioned is there has to be an institutional framework. When CPEC authority was a kind of institutional framework. Well, if this government doesn't want it to happen, so they have to create an institutional framework where the coordination of this mega project and various phases that are coming up, there must exist an institutional framework which should address the problems that Chinese businessmen face or investors face in Pakistan. So there has to be some institutional framework or arrangement whereby we can facilitate, investors, and we can facilitate consumer market, and we can facilitate, connectivity between the two countries, business people and investors.
Right. Let me come back to you, Shakil Saab. In terms of interaction with businessmen, why have we not been able to? I mean, I think this is consistently all of you are talking about the fact that, of course, our business model, the way we make our things in terms of trying to channel the Chinese market hasn't been done effectively. Why do you think we haven't been able to model our products to that kind of, to channel that market?
We are stuck in our past, as I said earlier. So we always talk about our security and the diplomatic relationship.
Okay. You think enough focus hasn't been on the economic side of our ties with China?
Yes, we have to focus on economy and the needs of economy. Just to talk, you can say just generally, that will not solve the problem.
Okay.
When we say the product, what type of product we can send to China? Either China have the market, we have the main product at this point of the time, textile, rice, these are our main exports.
Right.
China doesn't need it.
Okay.
One thing, second thing, when we are sending other things, for example, mango in different shapes, if we want to send the onion, if we want to send any other product, meat even. So do we have any analysis? So what is, who are the exporter right now to China, like ASEAN countries? What privileges do they have? And what are their standards? How they are meeting? Are we near to that? Just to say in the air, just we can do it, we can do this, that will not solve the problem. That's what I'm saying again and again. One thing is the institutional arrangement, another thing is our discussions and intellectual discourse.
Okay.
That needs to be changed.
Okay. How?
So that means when you are talking, you need to come about the solutions, not just like that. They are the general, at this point of time, they're the general statement phenomena. Okay. Oh, we can achieve this market, we can do this, but how?
You think it has to be specific, it has
and
to be
specific
garnered?
and need to be either our businessman is able to compete the global community, because we are living in a WTO era, world free trade. We can have some quota, but we need to exploit that.
Okay.
Can we do this? That is a real problem. One thing, and second thing, our business community, they are happy to sell to our, for example, textile. They are happy to send the big brands.
Okay.
Our leather industry in the shoes or football, they are sending to the big brands in the Europe.
Yeah.
Are we seriously thinking to change this mindset to use the supply chain of China to make our impact?
Okay.
Because if we look at that, for example, we want to build some computer products. We cannot make the computer, but we can make the keyboard of the computer.
Okay.
So can we ask the China, give us the share in your computer market, we will provide you the keyboard. For other example, we cannot make the car or any vehicle, but can we ask the China, give us the contract to go for the nut and bullets to produce in the Pakistan. We have these things in Gujranwala. We can make it, but we need strategy, not the general statements, and that is happening right now at the government part. In this government, in the previous government, as I said, in second phase we need CPEC authority, because we need to concentrate something. This is very important. Only Pakistan not have these special economic zones. In world there are 5,400 special economic zones in 147 countries. China have this BRI country agreements with the 146 countries plus international organizations. We need to compete with them. Okay. We just not just sell that, oh, we are the best. No, first make an analysis of those SACs, why they are important.
Right. Ji-Zoon, in terms of the specific side of things, I hope you've been listening to what Shakil Rame Saab is saying. He's raising very fair points. He's saying that, instead of exploring the Chinese market with specific products, for example, even if we can't make products like cars, or we can't make computers, we can make smaller products, which smaller essentials, which are then used. Using these strategies, exploring these measures, do you think China can aid us in that? Do you think they can give us some share of the market? Have we not effectively asked? Have we not tried to explore this? What's your overall feeling on this?
Well, we're saying trade, not aid. So I think definitely improving our exports, not just to China, to anywhere in the world, is a priority of Pakistan. I think I want to bring up one point where it is absolutely true that Pakistan over decades has been better connected as as an exporter to Western markets. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't think we need a change in mindset. We just need to have a more pragmatic mindset. For instance, it's perfectly great if Pakistan can continue to export to Western markets. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, they need some of our products. They need some of the textiles, some of the things that we do have an advantage in. It's perfectly fine to continue those exports. But what we can definitely, like he mentioned, think of what does China need. And that's where, obviously it's going to be about better understanding about each other. What I want to point out here is also that, China also does not have a trade surplus with absolutely every country. For instance, with South Korea, China has a trade deficit. So if China today says that, our aim is to have a trade surplus with South Korea, overall they have a trade surplus. So I think whereas it is perfectly valid and it is encouraged that we can think about, like you mentioned, how can China facilitate better entry and access to to Pakistani products into China? How can we figure out how our businessmen can also be more practical instead of thinking, okay, we need to apply the same rules, the same ideas that we do to Western markets. Explore, think of something new. And countries all over the world that are doing well in terms of their economy are successfully trading within their unique framework with Western as well as Eastern as well as African markets. This is something Pakistan can also do. So that's very important. Another thing I wanted to mention is I feel that what I'm also trying to communicate through different platforms is that we always think that the government, or the Pakistani government will make CPEC successful. And it is they who have the complete onus to make sure that this cooperation can go forward in a fruitful way. Actually, one thing that the Pakistani government can learn from China is how to empower your people to take the progress forward. In the end, it should be our businessmen, our youth, our people that should be thinking creatively, problem solving, and thinking of exploring opportunities in different countries. This has to be a two-way process. There has to be a synergy between the policymakers and the people. And that's somewhere that I think we need to think about CPEC as a success of the policymakers and the people. How can we enable our people to become more proactive, ambitious, and willing to explore opportunities overseas, including in China?
Naila, would you agree with that? You think in terms of involving the private businessmen to explore opportunities in China in a unique way, which is what Shakil Saab said, which is also what Zoon is saying, is essential to the kind of exploration in Chinese market that we need for our economy at this time, rather than, of course, the government has its own role to play, and it's ever ready to play that role. But we need that kind of drive, that kind of move, dynamism, one would say, from our private businessmen.
I agree with what Shakil Saab said or what Zoon is saying. But when I said that our businessmen are oriented towards EU and North America, it didn't mean that they should leave it and come here. What I'm trying to say is that they have to reorient their focus and try to study China as a big opportunity for them, which I don't think has been done enough. For example, in Chinese New Year, they use a lot of nectarine and kinus, and we are exporters of kinus. But when it comes to Chinese New Year, how many of our businessmen, because you see, we are not understanding that China is a very modern and developed country now. So you cannot use old methods to get market there. They are very competitive, they are very analytical, they are very critical. So your businessmen need training. For your kinu growers, for example, need training to be able to give presentations on what is the nutritional value of your kinu, what was the fertilizer used, was it organic, was it chemical. All these things are now important for China. Chinese consumer is no longer that traditional consumer. Chinese consumer is, as was said before, they have access to the whole world. They can get the same things out anywhere. But when it comes to quinoa, it is specific to Pakistan. That is an advantage. But our quinoa producers do not have that level to really export to
they need that kind of facilitation.
Mindset. And we need to train them. We need to educate them, and that's where government and private sector have to work in sync, where private sector is given, we should have incubators to train them to present their products in a very technical and professional manner. It's not that you will have a thada and you'll start selling news. That won't work in China anymore. You have to be professional, and that's where the gap is, because your exporters, I mean, the big exporters like textile and yes, Aptima and all those, yes. But your small SMEs, when you talk about, or agricultural products you're talking about, they are not of that level where they can compete in Chinese market. They need training, they need education, they need help.
Right.
So that's
on that note, let me come back to you. Dr. Talat, would you agree with what Naila is saying? let me come back to you. Dr. Talat, overall, as far as our businessmen needing that kind of support, where they can then compete in the Chinese market. Again, that's when we talk about China in the new era, I think that's what essentially Naila means when she says that they've changed. China is a very developed market, and for us to cater to their needs, we need to have our businessmen need that kind of training. We need to be able to sell our products, to be able to have the Chinese take that interest, and that is missing. That's the link that we need, and there perhaps those businessmen also need the government's help.
Yeah, I think this public-private partnership is very important concept. That government must drive a kind of partnership where they facilitate the businessmen to connect with Chinese markets. Now, there's an important issue in this. My sense is that most of the big businessmen are already connected with Chinese markets. They are doing businesses with China in various domains. But problem is that medium and smaller businessmen is not connected to Chinese market, and we stand to benefit when a large number of businesses are connected to Chinese markets. So that is not happening. I think government has a role to play in this, and for instance, Board of Investment is an institution. I think it is an underutilized institution, and it could have done a lot more than what has done in the past. So similarly, we need to train people. We need to create a kind of framework. We need to create infrastructure. We need to take measures whereby we can connect medium and small businessmen with the Chinese market. And there is no facilitation mechanism. For example, if I'm a businessman and I want to do business with China, so I don't know where to go to in government of Pakistan. So people need to create a kind of awareness what products, for example, we talk of mango, we talk of rice, we talk of cotton, we talk of various products. So we need to train and we need to tell people that, look, if you can send mangoes to China, this is the appropriate way to do it. This is how you can connect with it. So I think an institution at government level must facilitate, and there should be desks made, maybe like in embassies or in a special economic zone or wherever there's CPEC. You need to create awareness for traders and business people to connect with the Chinese market.
Shakil sir, is there really no facilitation mechanism at present? Because we heard a lot of talk about it in the past also. You think we haven't been able to devise any kind of mechanism to aid our businessmen if they want to establish, a business relationship with other businesses in China at this time?
I think I will start what I said about the mentality, mindset. I mentioned that because what mindset they have? Get an order, fulfill and sit and look for a new order.
Okay.
That mindset need to be changed. Okay. Look for the supply chain inclusion. It's permanent. Not every time you get a new order or struggle for that. Supply chain inclusion. In world, more than 80% trade is happening through the supply chains. Supply chains are the key in the modern world.
Okay.
We are ignoring. We are just for running after that. I will make my own product, then we'll sell. No, it will not happen. No. Okay. You cannot compete with Apple, IBM or these things. For that you need the 40, 50, 60 years.
Okay.
But right now you have to be in the supply chain. That I wanted to mean, the mindset we have to change.
Okay.
One thing. And second, facilitation. Facilitation means you create an environment where they can invest. That is not there. As I mentioned in the ease of doing business. Look at like all indicators. As I said in earlier, we need to go for the 7 different agencies to get a registration. 35 tax agencies. 113 days to get one election for the connection for the electricity. The number of things. So facilitation doesn't mean, we will strengthen. That I'm saying from the very beginning. We need to come out of this mindset, generalities and saying like that. That is we are talking about. How we build the security and diplomatic relations and the nuclear cooperation and other these things. Because when the people go, they go with the concrete plan and proposal. Not just like I want to do this. One thing. And second thing, for facilitation now we have to move implementation. That is the CPEC authority, why I am saying again and again.
Right.
That is, we have to bring the thing at one point. Why I am saying, look at that, India started the process of creating this special economic zone before China.
Okay.
And look the difference now. India has 2 to 3 billion trillion market, and China is the second biggest and going to be the biggest market of the world. And look the difference. Why? India was and still like us.
Right.
Number of things like that. And last thing, our businessmen, they talk about the facilitation, but they are not ready to get the facilitation.
Why would you say that?
They say that they are just trying to maneuver their connection-based governance in Pakistan.
Okay.
Oh, I get this thing, rest of things don't, then I will make a lot of money.
Okay.
The businessmen also have to come out. Look at that, every government, you will find a new faces in every government. They have their own preferred business community.
Okay.
You will find that. And
right.
with they are, I think the biggest hurdle for their facilitation and institutionalization is their own behavior in Pakistani business community. Okay. They are not investing a single penny on the research and the development to study the market of the world.
Research development is very important.
So
and that's
they also have to come out of their comfort zone. So we as a society and the country, we have to relook our strategic planning and implementation. Otherwise, China is our friend and brother. He will stand with us in the most difficult times. I believe it. And we stood with them.
Right.
And they are standing with us. So we will do it.
But in terms
for
of
the
economic ties.
For
right.
economic,
okay.
Please try to apply the economic rationals.
Okay.
Not that those other. Yes, we can get some help at some point of time, but for the sustainable economic relations, as they are becoming the global hub and the global power in economy, they want to look like a fair country, not like a biased country. So we also need to study them.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Shakil Ahmed Rame Saab, Zoon. Thank you so much for joining us from China. Dr. Talat Shabir, thank you for being with us. Naila Chauhan, thank you so much for your very valuable input. Thank you everyone for joining us today. As far as our relationship with China is concerned, certainly again, in terms of exploring sustainable economic ties, of course, we spoke at length about what measures need to be taken to further that side of things. Of course, we have long-standing economic ties, we have long-standing diplomatic ties, we have a long-standing relationship with China, and we want to build on that. But in terms of building economic ties, we need to take certain measures. Of course, the government seems committed to taking, looking at that side of things, to engaging our businessmen in terms of people-to-people contact, to making sure that we can explore the Chinese market, the changing China in the new era, and for that devising new methods of engagement with Chinese businessmen. Thank you so much for being with us today on Perspective.